Hello everyone. I'm going on the hunt in my yard for tree trimmings I can use for a wreath. I'm going to be starting with this tree here and just trimming off some of the branches and using those in my wreath project. So I'm carrying my cutters with me and I'll just start cutting down some of the limbs that need to be trimmed anyway. So I went ahead and I trimmed up some branches off of the tree, making sure I have enough to make a round wreath because I want to make it nice and full. And I also found these beautiful stems. This is a bush that flowers in the spring and summer. And you can see the flowers have gone by. And they just look like, let's see if I can get that in the picture there, like that. But the reason I like this is because it's still green. And if you hold it up next to the cedar, you'll see the lovely contrast of the greens. And I thought this would look so pretty wound up around the wreath with the cedar stems. Well, it's the next day. I did end up cutting off the branches, but then it got really dark and cold. So I waited until today, and of course it's raining out. But we're going to get this wreath done. Let me show you the branches I got. So I got a couple of branches from the cedar tree, and I also have some branches from a flowering shrub that I have in my backyard. I'm going to put this together in a round wreath format. So first I have to start with my clippers and trimming off the individual branches. These clippers are probably dull. I couldn't find my better pair. Sometimes you have to put a little elbow grease into it. I'm making a pile for the branches I want to use, and I'm making a pile for branches that I've already cut the greenery off of. Those I'm putting aside for the garbage pile. I'm able to take my twigs and leaves and all that kind of stuff to the dump here for free and compost it and turn it into mulch for people. I've mentioned this before in a video back in the summertime, and I don't take the mulch from the dump because I'm afraid of the poison ivy that they mulch up in there. And I'm afraid I'd have rampant poison ivy growing everywhere. But it's a good way to get free mulch, especially if you have a large area you need to mulch up. I don't know if all dumps do that or if it's just my town. Yeah, this thing is really, really dull. It should be sharpened or replaced. I go through these about once a year because I have so many things to trim up in the spring and summer. Now, of course, these are going to be trimmed down even further than this. I'm trying to just trim down a few small branches at first, and then I'll retrim them. I have the branches trimmed up, and I will trim them up further, but first I want to see which branches will make the best base for the wreath. So I'm going to pick through and find the best ones for the first layer. The key is picking branches that are not like this, where all the greenery is loosely covering the branch. You want something like this, that's nice and full, and all the greenery is tight knit against the stalk. Now that I've gone ahead and picked out the ones that will best be suited for the bottom layer, I'm going to go ahead and start trimming these up. And we are going to be making a round wreath. So anything like this that's sticking off of the edge here, we're going to be trimming that off. I can just do that with my Husky wire cutters. I don't need to use my big tree clippers. It's also important to wear gloves when you're doing this because these tree branches do get sharp. So that even cut through this thickness of branch. That was pretty impressive, I have to say. So now I have my first branch picked out. I'm going to clear off my workspace and put these down next to me. So that's going to be the start of my wreath. Now I'm going to take the next fullest one, or a full one, say. It doesn't have to be the next fullest one. And I'm going to start layering it like this. So I'm watching out for any empty space. I don't want it like that. I want it like this, so it looks natural. Then I'm going to trim this one up because it's got some loose branches down here on the bottom. And now I'm going to take my wire. The other day I did a tutorial, I think it was posted yesterday, and I did a front door decoration. And this is the wire that I used. I get it at the Dollar Tree. And in that video I mentioned that you don't want one that's not pliable. You don't want the wire to be too thick. You want to be able to work with it. So I'm going to just take a piece and I'm going to start wrapping it. Trying to get it under the greenery. It's hard to do with gloves. You just want to pull the wire tight as you wrap it around. And I'm sorry about my hand. Scalded myself making tea and the skin is starting to heal, so I apologize about that. It looks worse than it is, but it was pretty bad the day it happened. Okay, so now that it's nice and tight, take my clippers and just clip it off. And I'm going to continue to wrap it until it's completely wrapped around. And that's it. So now I have two pieces that are joined. And as you see, I'm trying to make that wreath shape as I go. So now I'm going to pick up my next branch. And I'm just going to continue to do this with the wire. After a while, you'll know what length you need, and you can just go ahead and cut it off. It makes it a little easier instead of holding it onto the cardboard roll there. You just want to tighten it as you go, because if it is loose, it won't hold the weight of these branches and your wreath will fall apart, especially if it's for an outdoor situation where you're going to hang it on your front door or something, and with the wind, you don't want to risk having it fall apart on you. And as you see here, I'm just going to naturally start to curve it around as I go. The heavier the branch, the more wire you're going to need to use to secure it. Some of these branches can be heavy with anything on them, as you see. So this one's kind of heavy. So we want to make sure we get that nice and secure. Thankfully, these needles aren't too sharp. I've done some with really super sharp needles, and gloves are absolutely necessary, but this one isn't too bad. So at this point, I'm going to start turning the branches around. So they were all facing to the right, but now that I'm making this corner, it's okay to go ahead and turn the branch around. And it's okay because we are going to be filling this in. So even if you have like a bare spot, right, and you can't get it quite right, you kind of tuck them in there. But say if you can't, it's okay. We'll fill it in with other things. So now you see how that's making a circle or a semicircle. You know, you don't have to be perfect. Now at a certain point, you may not have any full stalks left. So what you're going to do is you're going to make your own. You're going to take a branch. This is sparsely, decorated with greenery. But we're going to take this and we're going to make it full. You're going to attach it over here. Okay, so you see how that's taken shape, but now you got to fill this part in. I do have this nice branch. It is very, very heavy, so I'm going to be careful where I place it. Now, I could place it here where it needs fullness, but I can't place the whole thing there because it's way too heavy. So I think I'm going to strip it from here, the middle, about the middle. These Husky cutters are wonderful, I have to say. For them to cut through, a stalk that thick. So I'm going to set this aside because I'm going to use more of that. But I need this. So what I might even do is, I might even use it here to fill in. Yeah. It's all about placing, where you're going to get the most control for the weight distribution. Okay, now we're going to put it together because now it's come to a circle. So as you see, I got the round form with my wreath all done, and now I'm taking branches from a flowering shrub that I had in my backyard, and the flowers have gone by, but the greenery goes really well with the greenery of the cedar branches, and it's just going to give it that extra little touch of color. So I'm just taking the stems from the bush and I'm placing them around the wreath. It gives it that extra layer of color and little decoration. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the flowers. I'm just going to take my wire, cut it into about 12-inch sections, and then just place these pieces of greenery around the wreath. You want to tuck it in. And you can do this as many times as you want. You can cover the whole wreath with it. You know, it's your wreath, so you can decorate it however you want to decorate it. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in a few places just to give it that little tiny pop of color. And then in addition, I have one little stem of berries I had from the project that I did yesterday. And these have very sharp prickers. So with my wire cutters, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the prickers. And I'm going to do it over a garbage so I don't have the prickers on my porch. It would be nice if I had more of the berries, but I don't have the motivation to go out in the rain and pick more berries, if you know what I mean. And now, the final touch, I'm just going to grab my roll of ribbon. And what I do is I tie it in the back. So I'm going to pick a place to start. My bow is going to be here. Okay, so I'm going to pick a place to start around there. Just tie the ribbon, because I don't use glue, and that's where I'm going to start rolling. So from that, I'm just going to roll it around. And as I'm rolling it, I'm just pulling it through. This is wired ribbon. I also want to make sure I cover any spots where the silver wire is showing. And when I get back down to the bottom, I'm going to be making a bow right here. And you just kind of want to tuck it in as you go. And then I'm just going to tie it where the end is. Okay. And then you can go back and fluff up the pieces. I made mine kind of tight, but you can make yours loose if you want. Just fluff them up at the end after you've gone through and round it up. Sometimes the wire ribbon folds over itself, so it's a pain. But after I fluffed it, now I'm just going to make the bow. You can even get a bow at the Dollar Tree. It probably makes life a lot easier, but I happen to have a lot of ribbon, so I just make my own. I just take my 2 fingers and I go around them a couple times, and then I just start looping. That's exactly how I make a bow. It's not that difficult. And then after a couple times, I take my thumb from the other hand and I place it through the hole, and that's how I hold it. And then I just loop. I just make a bunch of loops. And of course, you may prefer red ribbon, whatever ribbon you want. I just happen to have this outside because I worked on another project yesterday. So, I had this already out here. And of course, it's your bow. So you can make it as simple or as full as you want. I'm going to stop right there because my fingers are freezing. It's really cold out here. Just cut it. And then you're going to take your wire and you're going to cut a small piece, about, I would say 6 inches. You don't need a very long piece for this. And you're going to, where my thumb is, inside that loop there, that first loop I made, you're going to thread your wire, pull it out, and then you're just going to continuously thread it through, and that's how you hold the bow together. Just like that. Very, very simple method of making a bow. So I'm going to take more wire, and I'm going to thread it right through there again, right through that center loop, and I'm just going to wrap it around the wreath. And I'm just going to fluff up the ribbon. Okay, so now I have that done. I'm going to take a look at it. Now I'm going to see, is there another place I'd like to fill in? Do I need more greenery? And I'm just going to take a look and see what I need, if I need anything else. So I think I need more greenery, so I'm going to start using a little bit more decoration. But you don't need wire. You can slip it right under the ribbon, wherever you want that little extra piece of decoration. Now, this will be hung on a porch. If you are hanging a wreath in open elements and you're afraid of the wind, you can always secure it with some wire. I don't need to because where it's going to be hung is out of reach of wind. And I still have all of this branch to use, so I'm going to go ahead and clip more clippings off of it. And I'm just going to go around the wreath and tuck in some of these branches. It just gives it the appearance of being a little bit more full. I'm also being selective about the branches. If you see any woody pieces, just go ahead and trim those off. And as I do this, I'm also fluffing up the ribbon at the same time. And of course, this can be anything you want it to be. You can use any element, whatever little piece of shrubbery you have, or any pretty berries, anything really. And then if you want, you can go back over it with more ribbon. Just by finding a starting place, tie it in the back, tuck it under, whatever shrubbery or greenery you use to decorate. Just simple knot in the back. And if you are using this for, a place like a doorway where it is exposed to the elements, you can also use glue just to kind of tack it down without worrying that it's going to blow away. And I just go around and fluff it up. Just take your piece of ribbon, fold it in half. Just loop it through the knot. It's amazing how quickly it gets dark out here. So I just looped it around my light fixture for now. But as you can see, there you have your homemade wreath. Now under this, I have the other decoration I made the other day. But you can see, if you wanted to make a hanger, by looping that ribbon on the top there, I made a little hanger for it. You see, so you can hang it on a door. And that is how you make a homemade wreath. And of course, mine doesn't have a lot of red in it. I know a lot of people like the red. But like I said, there's berries in there. You could do red ribbon. That's the basics of how you do a wreath, or at least a wreath base. You just fluff the ribbon, add little details, add a splash of color, and now you have a fresh wreath to hang on your door. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a tip or two. Please leave a comment to let me know if you have any tips or tricks for making homemade wreaths. Thank you so much. Take care.